The phone in front of Amelia's face was dark. Her computer screen was dark. All the lights in the room were turned off, but there was light. There was enough light for Amelia to see the white outline of her fingernails against her dark skin. It wasn't much, but it was just enough to see the fear slowly draining the color from her face. She had started the night like she did every other night, streaming video games to an audience that never seemed to get tired of watching her play. It was one of the few ways she could make money living in her isolated cabin deep in the woods. And even though she didn't really like talking to people all that much, the interaction with her viewers kept her from feeling too lonely. But then caller 37 called. He told her about the house he lived in with his family, how it was always cold, even when the thermostat was cranked up, how the drafts never seemed to stop blowing across the floor, how sometimes when no one was home, he would hear footsteps and laughter echoing through the halls. He said he could feel eyes on him when he walked down the stairs. Sometimes he would turn around and see nothing. Then he would continue walking, only to be stopped by a rocking chair moving by itself on the other side of the room. He talked about all this in a matter-of-fact tone. He didn't seem scared at all. He just sounded bored. And when he was done, he hung up the phone without even saying goodbye. That's when things started happening. First, there was a crash in the kitchen, followed by what sounded like pots and pans being dragged across the floor. Then a door slammed upstairs. Not long after, footsteps pounded down the hallway right outside her bedroom. Then came the whispers. She couldn't understand them. They were too quiet, but they were getting louder. Now she could make out the words. Leave. You're not safe here. When the whispers were suddenly cut off by a blood-curdling scream, Amelia shut her eyes tightly, trying to will whatever was making those sounds away. She didn't want to believe in ghosts, not really, but she had seen things in that cabin of hers that she couldn't explain away. If the caller had known something was wrong with the house, why hadn't he mentioned it sooner? Why wait until he was almost finished with his story? What did he want? Was he trying to warn her? Now the footsteps were coming closer. The whispers were coming closer. Had he brought it here with him? Whatever it was almost at her door. She could hear its ragged breathing. She could smell something metallic, coppery, like old blood. Fear gave way to anger. Who was he? What did he want? Then the door burst open. The moonlight sliced into the room like a knife, and standing in the middle of the floor was the source of the sound. A tall, gaunt man wearing clothes that looked like they hadn't been washed in years. His hair was matted and greasy, hanging over eyes that burned with an unnatural fire. His breath hitched as he looked at her, a smile splitting his face. I've been waiting so long to tell someone my story, he rasped, but now it seems I must go. With that, he dissolved into dust, leaving behind the faint smell of mildew and regret. Amelia sat in stunned silence for what felt like hours before she remembered to close the door. Then she got under her covers and tried to watch some TV, but she couldn't focus on the screen. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the man's burning eyes. She could hear his raspy breathing in her ear. She could smell his rotting flesh on her skin. She couldn't take it anymore. She needed to get out of the house to get away from all those memories. So she packed a bag and drove into town. But when she stopped at a diner to get some coffee, it was then that she noticed something strange. As she stood at the counter, looking out the window at the rain-slicked road, she caught sight of herself in the stainless steel coffee pot. She watched as her own face stared back, pale and drawn, the skin stretched tight over her cheekbones. It was as if she were seeing herself from a great distance. She blinked, but the image remained. And then she heard his voice, the voice of the caller, coming from inside her head. You shouldn't have come here, it hissed. You weren't meant to listen to my story. She whirled around, desperate to find the source of the voice, but all she found was the coffee pot and the empty road outside. Shaking, she poured herself a cup of coffee and tried to calm down. She couldn't stay in that diner. She had to get out of there. She paid for her coffee, grabbed her bag, and ran to her car. As she sped down the highway, the trees blurring past her windows, she realized she didn't know where she was going. But the road suddenly ended. In front of her, she slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. She had run out of road. Just then, a thick fog rolled in, swirling across the highway like a phantom. Trapped in the beam of her headlights, it coalesced into shapes that reached out towards her car. Skeletal hands clawing at the glass, desperate faces contorted in silent screams. Then everything went black. When Amelia woke up, she was lying on the ground next to her smashed car, cuts and bruises covering her body. She struggled to her feet and stumbled through the fog until she saw a light in the distance. Rushing towards it, she found herself at the edge of a clearing. And in the middle of the clearing was a house, or rather what was left of it. It was old and dilapidated, the roof caved in, the walls crumbling, the windows long gone, leaving gaping holes where eyes should be. The yard was littered with broken furniture and children's toys, the remnants of a life long gone. And standing on the porch, silhouetted against the light from inside the house, was the caller. "Why?" she screamed, her voice echoing in the night. "Why did you do this?" "Because," he said, stepping down from the porch and walking towards her, "my story had to be told." With that, he reached out and touched her shoulder, and she felt her soul being ripped from her body. She awoke in darkness, sitting in a chair in front of the now familiar dark room. The computer screen was dark, but the phone was glowing, illuminating caller 37's face. He was smiling, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was a smile that promised pain. "You should have listened to me," he whispered, his voice dripping with malice. "You weren't meant to hear my story." She tried to scream, but no sound came out. She tried to move, but she couldn't. She was trapped, held fast by an unseen force. Then he leaned closer, his hot, fetid breath washing over her face. "Now," he hissed, "it's time for me to tell you mine." And as he began his tale, she knew she wouldn't be the same ever again. Her eyes flew open. She was alone in her dark room, the phone lying on the table next to her. Was it all just a dream? She couldn't tell. One thing she did know, though, she had to listen to that call again. So she hit replay, and caller 37's voice filled the room. "Hello, I on?" he asked. "Yeah, you're on," she replied. "Go ahead, tell me your ghost story." Only she wasn't hearing his voice. She was hearing her own. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice echoing in her ears. "I don't remember calling. What do you think? Was caller 37 haunting the house? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to hear more scary stories, just search for more on this channel.